G'day, g'day, g'day. It's Mathematical KM. That's Keith Malumbi. Their initials, not a title. Coming in with the black pieces tonight in round 6 of the Thursday tournament at 1460. Black pieces fighting a little uphill against Mark Stubbs, who is rated at 1620. So that's what, 160 uphill, thereabouts. Okay, let's take a look at the game. Quite the interesting one. Let's take a look at what the computer thought of it. Interesting. You can see I made a couple of blues and fought back to equality more than once, but not in the end. And the overall, 80%, not too bad, not too shabby, versus 86. A couple of great moves, but more. Show this to Solomon Riddell, the good old chess giant, who... This is my first over-the-board Mittenberger Gambit. Recent video as an alternative to the Hippo against the Austrian attack. Game rating, 1950, not too shabby. But the opening, which is what I was largely getting from Solomon, 99.6. So got to be happy with that. 97, he's happy there. And a little bit questionable in the end game, as we saw. So let's just take a look at the actual game now. So I'll take that across. And away we go. White claims the centre with the E-pawn. We start the fianchetto. And bang, right here, right now. This is where Solomon's put forward the Mittenberger Gambit as an alternative. You can play against the Hippo against the 3-pawn centre on the king side, but it's probably the least fun of the Hippo situations. So, as a interesting alternative, and the computer's got it for its top move, Mittenberger Gambit. There you see, Mittenberger Gambit. White takes with the pawn. He could have taken with the knight. He could take with the pawn. He could push the pawn. He could do something else. He's taken with the pawn. And this is, I get 10 minutes in front on the clock here, pretty much following Solomon's lines. Now we've got two pieces on that D-pawn. He comes in with a check. This knight's path has always been to there and then to here, to B6, so that we will then have three pieces on that D-pawn. That's the plan. So it might look like we're blocking the check with the knight, but we've actually got a bit more of a plan than that. He brings that out, we castle. Now we can move the knight to where it needs to go. White castles. Right now we've got three pieces on that D-pawn. He's only got the one, a bit hard to add two. No checks. What does white do? His best move is H3, and well done to Mr. Stubbs. Oh, not yet. He does get the H3. Folding memory there. He's developed a bishop, getting a second piece on the pawn that's won back, because of course we will have our queen and our dark bishop on that one. Now our best move is the knight B takes, played. He takes. Now the best move is knight takes. I've played queen takes. But there's not a lot in it. We've hit a quality at move 10. That's not too bad for a black opening. I think we've got quite a bit of activity in there as well. And I think the title of this one's going to be Gunfight at the D4 corral. And the fight for that pawn is fairly epic. Okay, he's moved that bishop back. I've now got 1, 2, 3 pieces on that pawn. He's got 1, 2, 3 himself. He plays H3. I knew he was going to play it, giving his king an escape square. So we've got three pieces on that D-pawn. And I thought, let's try and hassle one of his pieces. We'll harass the dark bishop with that knight. And if he takes it with his light bishop, which he did, we'll take back with our queen. And a couple of things now. And you can see that it's actually a little bit in black's favour at the moment. We have got 1, 2, 3, and the rook can go before the queen, which is important. We've got 3 pieces on that pawn. He's got 3 pieces on that pawn. But, and this is kind of key, that pawn is pinned to the queen, and we have got 2 pawn pushes that can be played. He gives himself a pawn backing it up. I bring in the C pawn. If we go back, I think the computer actually liked the E pawn push, but okay, I could see the E pawn would maybe get onto the knight as well. But we've played it, so he can't take, or he'll lose his queen, and now we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. He's got 1, 2, 3, 4, but we've got that one up our sleeve as well. You can see the computer's suggesting a different sort of defence, like moving his knight to hassle my queen. What does he play? That was one of the choices. If you're going to lose out in that little battle in the middle, bringing the queen there, my best move is taking the queens off and doubling some white pawns. So he's doubled pawns there. I think I've played the second best here, C times D4. So we've doubled pawns and isolated those 3. And he'd be, if I was lucky, it's not going to happen, I'd be lucky if he would take with his C pawn and have an isolated pawn in the middle and the doubled pawns on their own isolated. But no, he's not going to do that. So he takes with his knight. Still very equal, slight edge to black, looking at the moves. A6 is suggested. It was probably a better move staying on the light squares, given he's got the dark bishop. But I decided to... I had the bishop pair, he had a knight. I like knights in the endgame. Kind of a bad call by the computer, swapping off my dark bishop for his knight. It's still very equal in the evaluation here. And I've developed my light bishop, connected my rooks. A little bit of a bad move in that right now. See, what was preferred? A6 or B6 should have been played prior to developing the bishop. I mean, he could have taken the A pawn. But I guess I had made a threat on one of the B pawns and he's protected it there. I've noticed that, hey, I should maybe have done something about that. And it's questionable. With him having the dark bishop, A6 would have been far superior. As is for now, he can't take it, but I've really got to babysit that pawn and that's going to come back and haunt me soon. Okay, he's brought a rook across, threatening the bishop. It is protected. And, yeah, one of a couple of blunders that's going to drop me behind and I fight fairly hard to come back. But I think we can already say that the Mittenberger Gambit opening's done reasonably well for me. But by disconnecting the rooks, he can take that pawn and I can't take back with my A pawn. Given as a great move. I did at least find the best move, or one of the best moves here, threatening one of the B pawns. He's taken with his rook. Let's get rid of those rooks. And I get one of the pawns. But yeah, with that little mistake there, the eval's still plus 1.4 to white at this point. So he's centralised his bishop. Let's get my king across because of course that's a bit of a problem in terms of back spankers. And also if I can get my king over towards these two. I really want to try and do something about these two and then maybe be looking for a draw. That's given us a great move. Maybe it was good thinking. Okay, he's come across. Now I really like the suggested move here. I didn't see it during the game. But bishop here where he can't take it. It's not like he can threaten it with his bishop. That keeps his rook back there. And if he brings his rook across back to the e-file, I can bring the bishop straight back. So that would have been a nice move. As it is, brought my king to where the king can come out if he gets checked. So he doesn't check me. Brings his rook there. He might be going to keep my king locked in a bit if he can move his bishop. I decided to place my bishop here, blockading directly the c pawn, and if the b pawn moves, it can just, I've got two pieces on it. So he's trying to organise himself to get some sort of mating net, he hopes, with just the bishop and the rook. My pawn's in the way, it is possible, but maybe we can do something about that. Okay, and we're at 0.5. It was at 1.8 after that mistake before. And the f pawn, not the e pawn, would have been better, but in this case, he's made a bit of a blue. He should have checked with the rook. Check with the rook's plus 1.89. The bishop there takes it back to 0.6. So that's not too bad. I can cut the rook off, which is perhaps why it would have been good to get the rook in there in the first place. So the rook can't come. Bishop there. You can see the bishop covers these two and this one. So if he can get his rook to here, that's like your checkmating net right there. That's what he's aiming for. Now, looking at this situation right now, I can't put my bishop here, or he can play that checkmate. It's really not that clever. I can see rook across to be threatening this pawn is not a bad move, but what I've played is the wrong way with the rook, and it's a bit of a blunder. Look at the plus 4.6. Had I gone here, if he'd advanced his pawn to threaten my bishop, which can't move, the rook could have taken it. Really needed my rook to go there. So that's a bit of a blue, and you'd think it'd be match losing. But we'll see how we go. And then you can see maybe in the end you could call it the beginning of the end. But let's have a look at a bit of a fight. So he's done the right thing there. Bishop can't move or it's checkmate. So let's take that pawn. And half of the idea being, if he takes with the rook, the pawn can get it. If he takes with his own pawn, well, his own pawn's in the way of playing checkmate. But he, did the right thing, takes a bishop with a pawn. So let's harass his bishop. He can't play the checkmating move with his rook because his own pawn's in the way. And I'm threatening his bishop. He moves his bishop over here, hoping to sort stuff out. Maybe take the pawn and then his rook can come in. It's all looking quite nice. But let's keep the pressure on the bishop. If he takes with the pawn, I'll take the bishop. Okay, now this next move. It's interesting that computer wants e times d5. I thought this was quite clever. I see the fight can go on if he does that. Gotcha. It is a clever move in that if he takes with the pawn, I get the bishop, and then he gets another pawn, and then the king gets his pawn, and then it's a rook and 3 versus a rook and 2 pawns. And if he moves his bishop, I wonder if he did move his bishop there, how's that any different from any other move? If he moves his bishop, I believed I would just take the pawn. If his rook takes it, I take back with my pawn. So bishop d6. Let's move this down so we can see this a bit. If he played bishop d6, it then thinks I would play rook b5 and not take the pawn. Oh, I'm sorry to disappoint, computer, but I would take the pawn. Anyway, that's something to look into perhaps later. What did happen is, and it's called a blunder, he bit the, I'm going to get 2 pawns for this piece and be ahead by a pawn in the endgame. That's gone very much to the land where the mathematical game has got to get better. It's quite interesting that it's only 0.1 to white. I'll learn a little bit more about playing these sorts of situations. So far, so good. It's interesting that it's suggesting get the rook threatening the pawn, but also up the board, whereas I've come across. But it's still 0.1. He backs that pawn up so the rook can't take it. And that was the mistake. And if I do come back, won't be on this video, but might come back and take a look at these lines, playing this game from right here, with it at 0.1. Rook c5, because obviously not taking the rooks off the board is the go for the team with the black pieces here. But what I did do is allow the rooks to come off, and now it's +5, +6. It's all over. I mean, what does +7 mean when you're here? It means that white's going to promote and white's going to win the game. And I think I just put shake hands. So quite the game. Pretty happy with playing 200 or 160 points uphill with the black pieces. That's a pretty tough fight. Couple of little mistakes, fighting it all the way back to even. Got to learn my end games. Looked like that was at that +0.1 stage. Could have maybe eked out a draw. But for my first game with the good old Mittenberger Gambit, got to be happy with that. And pretty good middle game accuracy, end games dropping it for me. But that is my first over-the-board Mittenberger, and I was pretty happy with it. Gunfight at the D4 corral. Bye for now.